If you're sick of the mainstream sports outlets, well, so was I. So I started my own show. I'm Shane Larson, and this is the Game Time Guru. It's different than other talk shows. I'm providing a panoramic view on sports so you can see them through a different lens. So buckle up and let's go. What's up, everybody? Welcome out to the Game Time Guru podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Shane Larson. Excited to be here with you guys for yet another episode of the show. This is episode 130 of the Game Time Guru podcast. Appreciate all my listeners that have been here since the beginning and anybody who's new. So if you are new to the show, welcome aboard. I appreciate you checking out the show. If you could, please go give me a rating and a review on my podcast, on Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform that you listen to it on. It really helps me out. And feel free to follow me on any of my social media platforms, such as Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm on there. I'm pretty active on those platforms, and I love discussing things with new people, any sports fan around the world. I love talking with y'all. One thing I did want to make mention is, hey, guys, I'm reading this book right now called It Takes What It Takes, and it's about how to think neutrally in sports, business, life, and everything. And one of those things I wanted to let you guys know is you can listen to that as well, or you can read it by listening to it as an audiobook, and you can use my Audible free trial link and go to audibletrial.com/thegametimeguru, get a 30-day free trial, and check that out if you want to read that. Super cool. It's about a coach who works with athletes. You guys might have heard me talk about him already on my social platforms, but he's a coach that works with athletes like Russell Wilson, teaching them the mental side of the game, which I thought was fitting because today I'm going to introduce my guest. His name's Diamyn Hall, and he has a lot of experience in the mental side of the game. So, Diamyn, thanks so much for joining the show, man.
I appreciate you having me, Shane.
Man, I'm super excited to have you because your angle, I guess, that you take into the baseball world and into the business world is a little bit different. I should say it's not the traditional style of coaching, but I want to get to know you a little bit better so that we can let the guests know who you are, and then we'll kind of dive into what your skill set is. So, Diamyn, you're into the sport of baseball. What's your baseball background? Let's flash back to when you started playing ball. How old were you when you started getting into the baseball game?
Man, so when I started playing, I was a junior in high school, so I started playing late.
Okay, that's way late.
Yeah, I was a football guy beforehand. Had a neck injury where I found out I had congenital stenosis, which is it's like narrowing of fluid in your spine. So I went head on with somebody. From the neck down, I was temporarily paralyzed, man. And it was kind of a blessing in disguise, though, because I was able to transition into baseball. Football and baseball are two different beasts. Football, you can be upset, you can be kind of a little bit out of control, but in baseball, it's the complete opposite. So for me, that transition from going from football to baseball, I knew I had to figure out something different. And it ended up turning out to be the mental side of the game, man.
The mental side of the game. So you stuck with baseball, though, into your college days, too, then as a player. So you made that transition late, relatively speaking, to most athletes going into the baseball side of things. What was as a player, I mean, we'll talk about the mental side of things, but as a player, what was your experience going from high school to the college levels, knowing that you didn't have a ton of experience at the baseball game in high school? How did you go into the college realm?
Dude, it was different. I mean, every level you go up, it's just a different beast. So my transition from going from high school to college, I went to a JUCO. So I didn't go straight from high school to a Division I because that's a huge jump there. So I got an opportunity to go to a JUCO and then transition my way into a Division I. But I would say the biggest thing was understanding that everybody was at the same level physically. Like in high school, when I made that transition from football to baseball, I was the biggest dude, strongest guy, fastest guy. Got to college, everybody in my position was like right here. So it really came down to the mental side of the game. That's what it came down to. That's the separator at the end of the day.
That's super interesting because that was going to be my next question was what was the toughest part about transitioning in there? And I've heard that before from guys who have played at the collegiate level and then go up, even in various levels of the collegiate level, like yourself, starting out at a JUCO. Even then, especially in baseball, sometimes in basketball, but especially in baseball, there's a lot of good baseball players at the JUCO level. There really are, because there's a surplus of baseball players across the country, and a lot of those JUCOs have a lot of good players. They might be playing JUCO for one reason or another. It might be somebody who might not have had a lot of experience but was super athletic and is good at the game. Could be somebody who's working on their grades. Could be there's various reasons people play at a JUCO level, but the baseball system, there's a lot of good players there. So I've heard that when they make the jump to the next level, and then you go into the next level of collegiate baseball or collegiate sports, which could be Division 1, 2, whatever it may be. And it's even more so difficult because everybody's at the same level. You might be a superstar in high school, but guess what? Everybody's at that level now. So I like that you mentioned like the mental side of things became that much more important. Now you started the JUCO. Did you finish at a JUCO? Like, did you continue your playing days later at a different school?
Yeah, so I went to a JUCO for 2 years, and then after that, I transitioned to a Division 1 down south. And there is when I was supposed to get drafted, 250,000, man, and I tore my ACL. 7 games in the season, I was hitting like 375. Tore my ACL, came back here in Ohio, did surgery with the Reds. Then I went back and I didn't hit like I should have, man. So after that, I ended up finishing my career at a Division 2, Georgia Southwestern, down close to about 2 hours south of Atlanta.
Okay. Let's take a second real quick. You mentioned you tore your ACL. For any athlete out there that goes through an injury, especially a serious one, when you're competing at a high level, that's devastating. I don't think people realize that, at least the general public. They don't realize how devastating an injury like that can be because you're in the college level of baseball at that point. Your years are limited as far as how much more you got left before you could potentially get to the next level, and your opportunities are limited at that point. So you have to take advantage of every opportunity you're given. And when you have an injury like that, it can kind of derail you a little bit. So I'm curious to hear from you, Diamyn, someone who's been there. How did you recover mentally from that? What did you have to do in your mind when you went through that, ACL injury? You're in college, you wanted to make it to the next level. How did you get yourself back to even want to play, even though it was at a different school? How did you get yourself back mentally, not just physically, but mentally?
Man, I would say I'd have to give the credit to my physical therapist, because at the end of the day, like, you can't do anything on your own. If I would have went through that whole process by myself, I don't know if I would have been able to do it. Simply because you don't know the things that you have to be focusing on. You don't know the things that are to come. But having him there with me, his name is Andrew. I think he's like I think he's the head guy for the Reds now.
Wow.
And at this time, he wasn't yet. Like, he was still in his younger years. So I was lucky to have him throughout that process, man. I give all the credit to him.
That's awesome, man. Shout out to, you said his name was Andrew?
Andrew.
Okay, awesome. Shout out to him. So that's kind of interesting to hear from yourself. Like, you had help along the way. It wasn't like you were doing it on your own. And I think a lot of athletes need to hear that. If you happen to go through an injury, unfortunately, like an unfortunate injury like that, make sure you have someone side by side with you, like to help you. Sometimes it's really hard to do that yourself because it can put you into a depression. It can put you, you just get negative thoughts typically when you go through injuries like that. But it's cool to hear that you finished out your career playing, but I'm curious to hear what happened next. When did you decide that you wanted to kind of help, take your skills from baseball and your knowledge of baseball and the mental side of it? When did you decide that you wanted to move from being, the playing side of it to more of the consulting, coaching side of it?
So I kind of knew while I was playing, man.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I'd read so many different books, studied so many different things, reached out to mentors, the authors of different books. I remember reading Relentless and then reaching out to Tim Grover and telling him, like, man, I feel like you wrote this book about me. Did the same thing with all of the Ken Ravizza, Heads Up Baseball. And as I was making that transition from football to baseball, and I had that stage where I was just studying like hours and hours and hours on like the mental side of baseball, the mental side of hitting, peak performance, like leadership, like everything that I was studying. Like, I knew I wanted to do that in some way, shape, form, or fashion after I got done playing. But I didn't know how it was going to turn out. And at that time, being in college, I thought I was going to be playing for like the next 15 years. So once that came to an end, I think I reached out to or I had a conversation with Jeff Mercer, who was the head coach at WKU, Western Kentucky, and he was recruiting me while I was in high school. And we had a conversation. He was always big on the mental side of the game, and then he was like, "Dude, I'm at Wright State now. Let's bring you on staff here, and let's do something that's never been done before."
Okay, so we're going over to Wright State. What year is this that you're at Wright State helping out from that perspective?
This was 2 years ago, so it was 2017, 2018.
Okay, so you're over there. What would you say your title was necessarily over there? Like, it was the first time they had implemented someone like yourself there to help with that. But what was the title? What was your role?
I think it was mental skills development coordinator, mental game development coordinator, or peak performance coordinator.
Okay,
it was the first time in history that it had been done in college baseball, man. So it was a good opportunity.
Super interesting. Okay, so tell us, Diamyn, what was one of the things that you, I guess, in that role, first time had been implemented, what did you do to help the players from the mental side of things? We hear you say, okay, well, I can help with the mental side of things. What exactly does that mean, so we can have a better understanding of, like, one of the players is needing some assistance? What did you do without giving away the book, like giving away everything, all your secrets? But what was one of the ways that you helped them out?
Man, the biggest thing was just treating it like a regular coach. I think, and that's what we did. Like, it was like I was another coach. It wasn't like, how to explain it? Like, it wasn't like a mental health. It wasn't in that category. It wasn't in like the psychology category where you go in and you have a conversation. It wasn't like the counseling. It was like I'm on the field every single day, treating you just like I'm treating everybody else. We're talking about what you can be doing in this situation, and breaking it down only from a mental standpoint. So everything that came out of my mouth was something that had to do with the mental side of the game.
So that's interesting you say that, because earlier I mentioned in the introduction, I'm reading this book called It Takes What It Takes, and it's about thinking neutrally, and it's all about your mindset as far as like not thinking negatively, not thinking over positively, but like controlling what you have in that specific moment in life. And he references sports because the author is the guy who does this coaching for like Russell Wilson and other football teams and stuff. And so it was interesting that you're saying that, because it's kind of, as I've been reading that book, my mind's been shifting a little bit, and I started thinking about my history in sports. Like in basketball, like I miss a shot and I get pissed. And so I'm like furious with myself, and it actually messes me up mentally because I can't focus on the next play, because I'm so screwed up in my mind about what I did just now. I was like, oh man, well, I missed that three, so that's going to put us down here. That's 2 possessions I just ruined because I did this, and then I'm not focusing on the rebound. So it's interesting because now I'm thinking, man, I can think of this moment right here, this. So it comes down to like planning it out and understanding these situations, these scenarios. So when you were on the baseball field helping these players out, did you, like, I guess at practice, Diamyn, would you ask them, like, at least go through scenarios so they understood? So when that scenario actually occurred on the field, when they were actually playing, it was almost as if they've already been there because you kind of prepared them for that?
Absolutely. And we would cover these things in practice, man. I think that was the biggest thing. So for example, a guy's hitting VP in practice. He hits a bomb, he hits another bomb, and then he pops up. And obviously, just like you said, when you're a competitor, man, I mean, you get pissed off sometimes, but it's a matter of like pointing out those moments specifically, like exactly when they happen, and like addressing them right then and there, because that's the thing that most people, at least in the mental skills space, like they'll wait until later. But I was like, no, we're going to treat this as a coaching position. We're going to call out everything that happens, but not just call them out, but then give them what they need to do the next time that situation happens, to your point. So preparing them for every single thing that came up during practice was the biggest piece.
Awesome. That way they were prepared for it when it came to be. I think that's what's super important. Everybody, I think people mainly understand that, like, practice that's what it's for, so that you can prepare for these situations, but not everybody practices the correct way, and when you do stuff like that and you prepare them from the mental side of things, how to prepare themselves mentally when a situation occurs in an actual game type situation, that's super important. I don't think everybody realizes that. Like, the mental side of things is huge, because the psychological impact that a mistake, if you will, that you make when you make a mistake in a game of any sport for that matter, or I guess in life, if you will, a mistake can have a psychological impact so brutal to an individual, and it can just steamroll out of control, right? If you're not prepared for how to handle that situation. So it's cool to see that they had someone like yourself. Honestly, I wish my coaches growing up at the high school level could have prepared me a little bit more, because at that level, you have a lot of weight on your shoulders. You're trying to get to the next level. And if you're fighting for playing time, you're fighting for popularity at your school. I almost wish we would have had somebody like yourself, an expert in that field, because it would have helped us get past those like additional mental pressures that we had in game type situations. Now, Diamyn, you said you worked with this team. What was the next step in your career as, like a mental consultant, a mental skills consultant in the sport of baseball? What was the next step?
The next step was for me was moving in the online space, because while I was there, it was awesome. And the guys that they took it in, we got a championship out of it. It was just one of the best experiences for, I think, myself, for the team, for the coaching staff. But while I was there, I came at a crossroads where I was like, okay, I can stay on staff here and the income and the impact be limited to 35 guys and whatever, that pay was at that point in time. Or I can start studying guys in the online industry internet marketers, like guys like Brendan Bouchard, Russell Brunson, Tony Robbins, and see how they do things, and then take what I have and take the knowledge that I know can impact these people based on the results that we got, and move that to the online space so I can impact people around the world. So that was the mentality that I had after, like, that summer after we had that first season doing it. It was great, but it was like, all right, that's done. Now how can I, like, take this to the next level and make this a bigger thing? Because at the end of the day, for me, there was a weight on my shoulders, knowing that there were so many guys out there, and like baseball players specifically, that were like that needed what we were putting on the table for our guys. So it was an interesting time, man. But I took that leap of faith, and then here we are.
Oh man, that's actually really cool to hear that. So what I tell people all the time, and that's one of the points I made this show 3 years ago, and one of my biggest things was I wanted to bring people like yourself onto the show, use this as a platform to show others that, like, athletes and sports are not just, the athletes are not just dumb jocks. They're not just dumb jocks. Yourself, you have this skill set, this knowledge that you acquired through your years of playing, and then your year, of coaching at that level. And you realize you had the skill set that you had acquired through playing sports and understanding life in general and living your life. And now you're looking to serve others with that. So it's not just a bunch of quote unquote dumb jocks. I hate that. I hate that phrase when people call them dumb jocks, because they're not. Like, someone like yourself is highly intelligent and you're looking to serve others. So you take this and you wanted to reach other people and serve other people outside of just the sphere that you were in, and you started going to the online space. So first things first, but I'm getting kind of blinded by your ring. What is that ring? Is that one of your championship rings you were referring to?
Yeah. So this is the one that we got at Wright State, man. We went to Stanford's regional. We went 39-17, took Stanford to, like, I think we took them to 14 innings that year. I mean, we had some monsters on the team, and like, we had some how to explain it? Like, so our recruiting model, we looked for guys who were like wrestlers, football players, like multiple sport athletes. And the goal was to, like, bring those guys in and then have these athletes, these high level athletes, and give them the mental side of the game and put the physical side and the physical side together. Dude, we had some absolute monsters. But yes, this came from that year, man.
That is so awesome, man. Good for you guys. That's so sick. Those are memories that you'll always have going forward. Now I got to make sure we touch base on the next step. You go onto the online space.
Oh yeah.
And you're working with that. What was the next step for you? Because I've heard of this thing called the Hitter's Blackbook. And so I saw you, I met you in Nashville about a year and 2 months ago, a year and a month ago. I don't know, a year ago. Actually, it was a year ago this week, if I'm remembering correctly. So it was like a year ago, I finally officially met you over there. And then I started following you, and I heard about this Hitter's Blackbook and stuff. So let's talk about that. So you get onto the online space. I want to see how you're making an impact in the online space. Have you?
So after I jump into the online space, I created a one-on-one coaching program. So I would do that through Zoom, like we're doing right now, with guys across the country, guys in the Pirates organization, but it was all one-on-one. And that was like the beginning stage. So while I was inside of that stage, it was more so of me making sure that I was getting used to it and still delivering results online. Once I figured out I could do that, then it was like, okay, how can I take this to the next level where everything is automated? So that was when I was like, immersing myself in books like Expert Secrets, .com Secrets, studying Brendan Bouchard, studying Russell Brunson, studying Tony Robbins. And through studying them, I came across, when I came across Russell Brunson, what was it? It was the Funnel Hacking Live. Live. And I went ahead and I was like, you know what? I've learned so much from him, just how he talks about telling stories, talking about offers, how to package everything, info marketing space. I've got to go to this event. So I get to that event, and then, that was the game changer for me. I went there. I spent my last $1,000, like, in my pocket to get there. Got there, had like $5 in my pocket, man. And it was like the knowledge that I gained there, the people who I met, came across Garrett White there, who's now the mentor. If I wouldn't have went, dude, I never would have met him. And he took everything to the next level. And so from there, literally after that, it was like, okay, how can I take what I'm doing to the next level for these guys who I'm serving? How can I optimize everything? How can I automate everything? How can I create more info products that they can actually have and use? So after that, this is last year at this time, dude. Like last year at this time, 365 days ago. Like I'm sitting here trying to figure out, like finding the design team, finding this, creating the template for the Hitters Blackbook. And so I ended up creating it, man, and ended up making it. And 3 months later, ended up selling it online. And at this time too, before I even go into to when I started selling it, at this time too, I created the online course. So basically it went funnel hacking live. That was the shift in my mind for me. Limiting beliefs gone. I know exactly what I need to do for my audience. And boom, created the Hitters Blackbook, created the 4-week online course. And 2-3 months later, ended up selling them both. And I've made the most income and impact that I've ever made in my life since then. And now it's like, okay, how can I grow this even more? It's just a continuous leveling up process.
Okay. So we're going to get to that in just a second. So are you still selling the Hitters Blackbook right now?
Oh yeah, that's in automation mode.
Okay, so tell us about the Hitters Blackbook. So you talked about you wrote this book, went along with one of your courses that you put together, utilizing some of the knowledge that you already had in the world of baseball. Tell us about the Hitters Blackbook. What is that about?
So it's actually not even it's not an actual book that you read. It's more so, I don't like to even call it a journal. It's more so of a self-study system. So I put together a system that allows hitters to use this throughout the course of the season so they can stay consistent, keep the momentum going, know what to focus on when it comes to the mental side of the game. And so they're like writing it every single day, before every single game, during every single game, after every single game, and they know exactly what areas to focus on. And dude, the results that we've been able to get from this have been incredible. We got guys from Stanford using it, LSU, Ole Miss, Arkansas, guys in professional baseball, Seattle Mariners, New York Yankees, Cincinnati Reds. We've spread it pretty far, man.
Man, that's so cool. Like, just for the listeners out here, like I said, I met Diamyn last year at Funnel Hacking Live. I kind of kept an eye, just like following you on social media, saw that this thing came out. I've been rooting for you ever since, just kind of like seeing the progression that you made in the business side of things, entrepreneurial side of things. Super, super like inspiring and super cool to see it. And then I just saw you a couple weeks ago back in Nashville, and I'm like, dude, this guy's starting to get it. Like, you could kind of tell. And I didn't know the backstory. Like, I didn't know what you'd spent your last 1,000. I didn't know that's a story that you can tell later on. You know what I mean? Like, that's to get there and how that actually shifted your mindset completely. You met people that you wouldn't have met before. Garrett White's one of them. Name dropping Garrett White. If you guys haven't ever heard of Garrett White, check him out. He's pretty intense. He's not for everyone, because some people can't take the language, but Garrett White is an absolute stud, in my opinion. So I'm glad that you got to meet him and utilize his teachings as well. That is so freaking cool. So course goes out, the Hitters Blackbook's out. You're learning the online space. You're learning the entrepreneurial stuff. What would you say, I want to touch base on this, through your skill set in baseball, your experience in baseball, Diamyn, both as a player and as a coach, what would you say is one of the parallels? What's something that you were able to take from that? Besides your knowledge, I should say, what was one of the skills you learned in sports that you could take into the business world when you were doing all this marketing and learning the direct response marketing game, I guess?
Persistency, tenacity, relentlessness. And I think that sums it up, man, because in this game, dude, like, it's the business game, you have to take that exact same mindset that at least for me, I had to take the exact same mindset that I had in sports, which was, I'm going to figure out a way to be the best possible version of myself that I can possibly be. And I'm willing to do the work required in order to get there. So when I made that transition, it was the same thing. Like, I'm willing to study Brennan Bouchard's videos and how he's actually staying compelling throughout the course of his videos, and then add that skill to my repertoire so I can produce and I can impact my people through the online space in the best way possible. So I was like up at like 3 a.m. in the morning studying guys like himself, like I said, him, Russell Brunson, Tony Robbins, other guys. Oh, Dean Graziosi, can't forget about him. Just immersing myself in studying the game. And the perfect example of this, man, is when you think about Kobe, like that Mamba mentality. He was somebody who I studied like from the time before I even played baseball. I would study his interviews, watch his interviews, saw how he carried himself, looked at his mentality, how he went about his work, what other people were saying about him, what his teammates were saying about him. And especially the Relentless book by Tim Grover, just continuing to study guys like that, like taking those same skills and mindsets, and then transitioning them over into the business realm, man, has been huge. And it's still tough. It really is. It's still tough because you get to a place where you're like, okay, I've reached a certain level of success. Now I have to kind of reset so I can take it off to the next level and do more.
Man, thank you for sharing that, because for me, I love that. Okay, so persistence and relentlessness, like just being relentless. One of the things that like I learned in the sports world, I can relate to that, not to the level of where you're at, I don't think, because you played at a higher level than me, you coached at a higher level than me, and now you're doing a different side of the business. But for me, even just playing at the sports I competed in and everything, and transitioning those, persistence was huge for me. Even with this podcast, for instance, like persistence is like, it's, you just got to keep at it. You got to keep at it, but you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over. If it's not working, you got to make adjustments where you need to. You got to call an audible every once in a while and say, okay, well, what's the market telling me? Okay, this isn't working. You got to keep going. But I love that you referenced Kobe. I just did a show a couple of weeks ago on Kobe, just kind of what he meant to me, and just talking about the Mamba mentality, what that really was, what his work ethic was truly like, even through the ups and downs. People don't realize Kobe wasn't a perfect person, and he'd be the first to tell you that. He had marital issues that were out in the public and this and that, but he still kept going. He made adjustments where he needed to. He worked hard. When everybody was sleeping, he was working. And he had to make adjustments, and he failed a lot too. That's the thing. He wasn't always successful. Kobe had terrible shooting games all the time, but he still kept working at it. And so I love that. He was relentless in his attack, just kept going, because he knew what he could be, he knew his potential. And you just talking about that, I can kind of see that, especially over the last year. I see exactly what you've been doing. Like, you've been putting in the work, ups and downs, whatever. You can see from my perspective that you've been able to take your game to the next level in this entrepreneurial journey. Now, you said you wanted to reset. Now you got into this level of success, wanted to reset so you can take it to another level. What's next for Diamyn Hall?
I'm thinking more so of now being able to coach other people who want to do what I do. And not necessarily who want to do what I do, other mental game coaches, other mental skills coaches, leadership coaches, people who are in the mindset coaching industry, and teaching them how to essentially do what I was able to do over this past year, and have like 10K months, 15K months, because that's something that I never thought was possible. A year ago, dude, I literally had no money. And so I want to be able to kind of teach them how to do what I've done, man. And so I think that's the next step. But it's tough for me right now because, I have this huge following, and all of these players who I'm leading who are inside of a lot of the training programs. So I feel like I have to systemize this first, like 100%, before I start to pivot into that next area. Or, it's been a kind of a back and forth right now where it's like, okay, I can continue to systemize this while I start to build this over here. And I know that, it's always, you want to focus on one thing at a time, but man, it's just such a weight on my shoulders whenever I learn something. Like, I feel like I have to give it to someone else who's been in that same position that I was in, trying to get to that next level. Like, there's just a weight on my shoulders that says, dude, this is what you have to do so you can contribute. And I remember even at Funnel Hacking Live, man, this year, when Tony Robbins said that fulfillment comes from growth plus contribution, that stuck with me. And I'd always felt that way before, but I didn't have like the equation that he gave to put to that feeling that I was feeling. So, man, after that, dude, it was like, okay, it's time to reset again. It's time to move forward. It's time to take everything to the next level. And so what we've been doing on the back end with the baseball mindset coaching right now is really trying to turn this into something where it's super automated, where I have other coaches who are kind of able to replace me when I'm not able to do certain things. And essentially to have somebody else at the forefront of it, or, have a group of coaches who are specialized in certain areas around the country, so we can like take this to the next level. And I can essentially scoot over and start coaching other mindset coaches in the game of business, man. Because whenever you can teach someone else how to make more income and more impact, oh my goodness, like it's nothing else like it.
Totally, man. I'm looking forward to seeing how this pans out for you through the next, couple months to a year. Hopefully we'll see it next year at Funnel Hacking Live as well. So I'm obviously going to stay in touch with you and kind of see how this goes. But it kind of, as you're talking about it, it sort of reminds me of like focusing on the who, not the how. I mean, you have built quite a big following. You got this system that you have there, and it's probably like this in your own head. You don't want to just give that up because you've impacted so many people and you have that there. But maybe almost like a GM in sports. Like, you've got to find the right coaches, you got to find the right staff to kind of help manage that side of things, so you don't have to give it up, so that you can focus your energy here. Well, you can still dabble in here every once in a while, but your energy goes over here to the new venture, as long as you have the right team in place to kind of help take over and manage that specific business. So I think you're kind of onto that right now. You're focusing on that who, not the how. Try to find some coaches that could potentially help you out there, still provide value to the customers you already have in the baseball world, while you make the shift and the pivot over to the business side of things and helping out on that end. Man, super cool. And I'm curious, so that we might have to do a follow-up interview in, a year down the road and see kind of how this shift happens, because I like seeing it as it's going. I want to know, though, like, people love to see the behind the scenes. Like, how's it working? How's this shift working? What's going on? Is there any way that we can follow you, Diamyn, and kind of see what's happening in your life? Like, seeing what's going on in the business world? Do you have social media? Where can we follow you? Do you have a show? You have a podcast? You blog? You have a website? Where can we follow you?
So I would say Instagram and Twitter are probably the two biggest places right now. So
okay.
And those are both Diamyn Hall. So DIAMYNHALL. And what I've been, focusing on doing is broadcasting more. I can give people more of a behind the scenes. I'll even thought about creating like a Instagram account strictly for like business owners, to where it'd be private, and then I'd have the behind the scenes with that, talking about marketing, sales, systems, processes, people. Because right now, if I start talking about those things with the audience that I have, that wouldn't resonate with them. So I'm trying to, that's another hard part about it, is I'm trying to keep the messaging on point for who I'm serving and who I'm talking to.
Totally understand that piece of it. I'm a big believer in publishing. I'm a big believer in broadcasting, if you have a way to do it, and starting, to try to find that audience and help them. There's a lot of people that can benefit, though, from your background in sports, even if they have no background in sports, period. I do believe that. I think that a lot of business owners, a lot of coaches, that, like anybody who's in that space, can benefit from what you've learned in sports. So I still think a lot of your stories that you have from the sports background can be applicable, and you can, find that parallel when you do provide your coaching services over there. I'm looking forward to following you, though. I really am. And we'll put the links to your Instagram and Twitter feeds down here in the description when this show is live, so people can go and find you. But Diamyn, we're excited for you, brother. And it's going to be a really fun ride to see where you go now, because you've already seen so much success. Can't wait to see the ups and downs. Like, I think that's the best part of the journey, is the ups and downs. Like, I don't want to say, oh, you're going to fail here. I don't want to say that at all, but we do know that there's going to be some waves here and there. I love seeing people go through those so that they can get to the next level. And it's going to be super sick, dude.
But I appreciate it, man. And you might have to help me pull out some of these stories, man, because I forget that sometimes too. It's like just telling the personal stories. They connect so well sometimes. And usually I'm so focused on teaching, I forget about the story part of things, man. So you got to hold me accountable for that. Oh,
I'll hold you accountable, dude. If you don't already have a podcast out, I'm going to make sure you get a podcast out, even if it's just 5-minute episodes.
Dude, that's where I want to start. If I do start, I feel like that'd be the easiest for me. You can show me how to do that, man, I'm in.
All right, brother. We'll be in contact after this. I'll try to get you, just up and running. Get your stories out there, because you can do some big things with the knowledge and the stories that you already have. I appreciate you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this was Diamyn Hall. He joined us today. I hope you enjoyed this interview. Make sure to go follow him, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast as well for me, and leave me a review if you can. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.